Synopsis of the story, mated to my father's enemy, Caliana Hayes has always been her father's most obedient daughter. Shielded, groomed, and taught to despise his rival, Joel Alvarez, the man blamed for tearing their world apart. For years, she has believed her father's stories of betrayal, power, and vengeance. But the night she meets Joel, everything she thought she knew begins to unravel. Bound by a force she cannot control, Kaliana finds herself mated to the one man her father has sworn to destroy. Joel is ruthless, feared by many, yet in his presence, she feels a pull stronger than blood loyalty, stronger than hate. The bond is undeniable, tormenting them both with passion and fury. As family secrets claw their way to the surface, Kaliana discovers that the feud between the Hayes and Alvarez families is built on lies, stolen legacies, and buried sins. Her father will stop at nothing to keep her away from Joel, even if it means breaking her spirit or ending her life. But Joel is no ordinary enemy. He's willing to defy war, tradition, and blood oaths to claim what destiny has bound to him. Now Kaliana must make the ultimate choice: stay loyal to the man who raised her, or surrender to the mate who could destroy her family but save her soul. Kaliana's point of view.
The first time I hear Joel Alvarez's voice, it's through 3 inches of mahogany door and the last place on earth I'm supposed to be. Tell Hayes he can posture all he wants, he says, calm as a winter lake. The numbers don't lie. He made the first cut. I only finished it. My fingers still on the brass handle. The corridor outside my father's office is a museum of victories. Framed newspaper clippings, photographs of ribbon cuttings, handshakes with governors and mayors, carefully curated so you forget the smell of blood underneath fresh varnish. I'm not supposed to be home. I'm not supposed to be listening. But the door is cracked and curiosity has always been a quiet hunger in me. My father's reply is a blade. You expect me to swallow that? You dismantled Anton's line just to watch me bleed? No, Joel says. I dismantled it because it was running ghost labor and skimming. Your brother signed, not me. A beat of silence. I blink hard. Anton, my uncle. The one Dad calls a falling star, said with an indulgent smile and a long drink afterwards. Ghost labor? My stomach prickles. Jen, our head of security, rounds the corner. He sees me by the door and lifts a brow. I straighten, trying to look like someone who has never eavesdropped in her life. He doesn't call me out. He never does. Instead, he tilts his chin toward the winter garden. Your father's meeting will be another 10, he murmurs. Hold out there, Callie. Wear a coat. I won't be long, I whisper back. Inside, the voices drop, and Jun shepherds me away before I can glue my ear to the wood. It's easier to obey Jun than my father. Jun's rules are simple. Stay breathing, stay smart. I take the long hallway that skirts the winter garden. Glass panels frosted with breathy white black-bone trees outside holding snow like secrets. Our house looks like a magazine spread in winter, all stone and steel and severe grace. It also looks like a barricade. In the reflection, I catch my own face. Brown hair into a neat knot because Dad hates strands escaping, black turtleneck, grey wool trousers, minimal jewellery, minimal statement, a woman styled by a team, not herself. Downstairs, a catering crew sets up white linen in the downstairs gallery. By 8, the place will hum. Donors, allies, enemies with excellent tailoring. My father's charity gala is the kind of event where people tout their consciences and write checks big enough to buy absolution. Every year, I give a speech about future-facing initiatives. Every year, Dad smiles at me over champagne flutes, hand heavy on my shoulder. Our family is legacy, he says. You are Hayes. Remember where your loyalty is anchored. Today, loyalty feels like a necklace that's slightly too tight. Miss Hayes, one of the caterers calls, breath puffing in the cold as a crate of champagne clinks. Early, look at the florals? I nod. Peonies, but keep them low. Dad hates when centerpieces block sightlines. He laughs. Yes, ma'am. If I keep moving, I don't think. If I keep solving, I don't hear that calm voice, the one that wears my father's hatred like it's not heavy at all. I duck into the service hallway to cut back to the main stairs and stop dead. There's a man there, in a charcoal coat open over a black suit, sleeves pushed to his forearms like he got bored of buttons. He's studying a sculpture I've seen 1,000 times and never really looked at. A tangle of iron, shaped like a heart from some angles, and like barbed wire from others. He doesn't notice me at first. I notice him because it's hard not to. He's not beautiful in the delicate way the magazines like. He's precise, sharp jaw, dark with an evening shadow, mouth cut like it doesn't apologize much, hair too long on top for my father's taste. There's an old pale scar bisecting one eyebrow. It should ruin symmetry. It doesn't. Private hallway, I say, because habit speaks before I do. Staff only. He turns and the air folds. It feels like the temperature drops 2 degrees, not because he's cold, because something in my chest steps back and pays attention. Grey eyes. Not the washed-out grey of bad suits, but storm cloud grey, and a kind of stillness in him I've only seen in Jun, men who map escape routes without moving a muscle. Noted, he says, voice the same cool water I heard under my father's door. I took a wrong turn. My mouth goes dry. I know that voice. I've never heard it up close, but my body knows. A pulse beats in my throat. You're early, I say. We're not open yet. His gaze flicks to my face, then my hands, the knot of hair at my nape. So, are you? There's no ring on his left hand. I don't know why I check. I don't know why the fact lands like a small, unnecessary relief. You're trespassing, I say, because rules are easier than people. He leans a shoulder against the wall. Casual, elegant threat. Is that what I'm doing? You're in my house, I say. So, yes. Your house, he repeats, as if tasting it. Not your father's. Heat touches my cheekbones. Both. Something like humour flickers in his eyes. Fair enough. Silence drops between us. Not empty, not comfortable, a held breath. His cologne is clean and spare, cedar and some faint mineral edge like cold iron. It threads through the disinfectant tang of the service hall and pins something inside me to the wall. My heartbeat goes high and thin. Do you always wander into kitchens at galas? I ask, disturbingly breathless. Only when I want to see if the host prefers to keep the mess out of sight. He tips his chin toward the polished corridor on the other side. I'm guessing yes. We prefer order. He studies me like I'm a book he's already decided to finish. And do you? The question catches me where I don't expect it. I open my mouth, close it. It's a big house. We like knowing where things are. His mouth tugs, not quite a smile. The scar over his brow doesn't move. I can respect that. Footsteps echo from the gallery. His head cocks, listening. Then he straightens, the lean vanishing. The stillness sharpens. In 2 strides, he's inside my space, and I forget how to swallow. Kaliana? He says softly, not a question. My name on his tongue splinters me, in a way I don't have vocabulary for. He didn't tell you my name. No, he says, and there's a flicker of apology, then something that is not apology at all. You didn't. Who are you? I whisper. He doesn't look away. A problem you are always going to meet. And then Jun's voice carries down the hall. Miss Hayes? The man steps back. The loss is physical, like Someone unhooks a cord from my sternum. I sway, he notices. For the first time, something like concern skims his face, almost tender and gone in an instant. Later, he says low. We should both act surprised. Act surprised about what? You'll work it out. Jern rounds the corner, stops dead when he sees us. Not many things make Jern look startled. This does. In the half second before his face smooths, I see it, recognition. Mr. Alvarez, June says, careful. The main entrance is that way. Alvarez. The name hits like a slap of cold air. My skin goes tight. I look at the man again as if a different angle will make him someone else. He watches my face for the flinch. He finds it. Right, he says mildly. Wouldn't want to upset your father by using the wrong door. Mr. Alvarez, I echo because my mouth is an echo chamber and my brain is static. How invited, Miss Hayes? June says quickly. His gaze skates to mine, steady warning. Not here. Not now. Your father asked that we extend Mr. Alvarez every courtesy at tonight's event. My father invited him? To our house? To the gala he uses to parade civility like it's a trophy? The floor tilts. Ghost labour, Anton's signature, the quiet winter voice through the door. Everything collides and sprays light through places I keep shuttered. Joel Alvarez inclines his head to me, formal, like we're chess pieces floor-bound by old rules. Thank you for the warm welcome. It is not warm. It is not a welcome. It is a small and terrible mistake to hold his gaze as long as I do, because something under my ribs turns its face to him, and I cannot pretend I don't feel it. Jun shifts, placing his body between us with the finesse of a dancer and the inevitability of a wall. This way, sir. Joel goes without argument, but not before letting his eyes return to me once more, lingering, explicit. The look is not cruel. It is not soft. It is the look of a man who has just placed his first piece on the board and already knows 3 ways this game ends. When they're gone, my knees remember gravity. I brace a palm on the wall. Static skitters along my skin. The service hall hums back to normal, the white noise of coolers, the distant clatter of silver. I tell myself to breathe. Alvarez. I have heard his name said 10,000 ways in our house, whispered like a curse, spat like a rotten taste, spelled on legal briefs and printed across headlines that made my father grind his molars until the dentist warned him he'd break them. I know the version of him my father keeps in a glass case, vulture, usurper, enemy. The version I just met is nothing like glass. He is the thing that breaks it without raising his voice. I find the main staircase like I always do when I don't know what to do, by muscle memory. The chandelier above the foyer throws constellation light onto the marble, all cold stars. Staff move like choreography, napkins folded, wine bottles lined, earpieces murmuring. I move through it untouched the way I was trained, smile preloaded and neutral. Upstairs, my father's office door is closed again. Voice is gone. The house absorbs sound the way it absorbs everything else, perfectly. I go to my suite and close the door and lock it, another habit I didn't know I had until I started doing it without thinking. I sit at my dressing table, hands flat. In the mirror, a composed woman stares back. Her pulse is a strobe at her throat. Don't be ridiculous, I tell my reflection, which has never been very obedient. He's an enemy. Dad invited him because what? Strategy? Humiliation? A trap drawn with linen napkins and donor lists? There's a fragrance sample on my tray, some niche thing the stylist left last week. I uncap it and dab it at my wrist. Moss, bitter citrus. It uses my skin and turns ugly. I wash it off, scrubbing until the last ghost goes. The memory of his scent refuses to leave. Clean cedar, cold iron. It sits stubborn as a fact. I dress in black satin with a square neck and pockets hidden in the seams because I like having somewhere to put my hands. I keep the jewelry simple, a thin gold chain, the Hayes signet ring Dad had sized for me when I turned 18. He says it looks better on me than on my brothers. Sometimes I think he says that to see if I'll glow for him. Sometimes I do. When I go back downstairs, the doors are open and the house is a controlled flood. Photographers at the entrance pop flash for the people who like that sort of pain. A string quartet soars at something expensive that sounds like well-mannered grief. I find my mark near the donor's wall, smile appropriately, shake hands that smell like silk and bourbon, say the phrases I've been taught. Kaliana, darling, you look luminous. Thank you, Mrs. Dwyer. Your pledge last quarter made the literacy program possible. Your father must be so proud. He is. He raised a gem. I try to reflect his light. The answers come like cards from a stacked deck. I don't have to think, so I think about Joel instead. I don't mean to. He slips in like a song I pretend not to know the words to. I feel him before I see him. It sounds ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But my body is a compass that somebody just corrected. In a room webbed with people, the thread pulls taut and points. My head turns as if someone else is piloting it. He's across the room, talking to a councilman whose smile never reaches his eyes. He stands like he stood in my hallway, calm, rooted, aware. The charcoal coat is gone, the black suit ed to its exact lines. Women watch him with that look women have when they want to pretend they're only curious. He looks at me. The thread hits bone. I've been held before by men who thought possession and protection were synonyms. This is not that. This is a recognition that rearranges the scaffolding of things. It is a wrong name spoken correctly for the first time. The floor steadies and the ceiling moves. A donor at my elbow laughs. And that, my dear, is why you hire a better PR firm than Alvarez. She follows my line of sight. Oh, well, he does wear a suit. Everyone wears a suit, I say, voice so even I'd applaud it if I weren't busy remembering how to breathe. Not like that, she says, amused. Careful, darling. Your father will have a stroke. Jun appears at my shoulder as if conjured. Speech in 5, Miss Hayes, he says low. His eyes tick once to Joel, then back. His mouth barely moves. Stay near the dais till I signal. What do you know that I don't? I murmur. Plenty, he says, not unkind. But right now, that if you're going to fall, pick a soft place. I step onto the dais when the fundraiser director calls my name. Applause unfurls like an expensive ribbon. I grip the podium and deliver the speech I could recite in my sleep. Literacy, mentorship, second chances, the scaffolding our city deserves. I say the words we polished until they gleamed. While I speak, he doesn't look away. I should feel watched. I feel seen, which is worse. When the applause swells again, my father appears, timing his entrance so he can cross to the stage for the photograph. He kisses my cheek, a public benediction. Up close, I smell his cologne, the one worn by men who like their power bottled. His hand tightens on my waist, half a breath too long. To anyone else, it's a proud father keeping his daughter close. To me, it's a reminder of the leash. Perfect, he says through the side of his smile, just like we rehearsed. Thank you, I murmur. Now, he says, turning us toward the cameras. The real work. He lets go. I turn and find Joel Alvarez waiting at the foot of the dais, exactly where I have to step down. For a second, it's just the three of us aligned like a problem. My father, me, the man he loathes. A photographer, sensing blood, lifts his camera. Joel doesn't offer his hand. He stands and lets me choose. I step down anyway. The space between us is a measurement I'm going to learn by heart. The air shifts. The world goes topographic. I can feel where he is without looking. Mr. Alvarez, my father says, voice warm enough to boil, I'm delighted you could make it. Joel's eyes don't leave mine when he says, you made it difficult to refuse. My father laughs, the kind that puts people at ease while it kills them. He turns to the cameras. A photo for the papers, he says, proof that even the oldest bridges can be rebuilt. He puts an arm around my waist. Joel takes a deliberate half step closer, not touching me, not even near. And yet the hairs at the nape of my neck lift like he's whispered against them. The photographer counts us down. 3, 2. The scent hits then. Clean cedar, iron, something I can't name and never wanted to need. And the room blurs at the edges. It doesn't feel like hunger. It feels like a chord thrummed once, hard, and left vibrating in the marrow. I inhale without meaning to. Joel's pupils flare. Just a fraction. The composure doesn't crack. It tightens. His jaw ticks one small time. 1. The flash goes off. I'm smiling for the papers when a truth prints itself under my skin in ink I won't ever wash out. Whatever this is, it isn't going to be contained by our father's rules. And for the first time in 24 years, I don't know if that terrifies me or sets me free. The gala had always been my father's stage, not mine. He thrived in lights and applause, while I perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. Smile, nod, answer with poise, disappear into the background of his triumphs. That was the rhythm of being Caliana Hayes. But tonight, the rhythm faltered. Everywhere I turned, I felt Joel Alvarez. Not because he hovered, he didn't. He moved like a storm cloud drifting at its own pace, commanding attention without ever asking for it. Conversations bent toward him. Men who swore they'd never shake his hand leaned closer. Women watched him with undisguised interest. My father's rival didn't need to shout. Silence followed him like a crown. I tried to pretend it didn't matter. I tried to remind myself of the stories father told. Joel Alvarez, thief of contracts, traitor to allies, destroyer of legacies, the man who turned our empire into a battlefield, the reason our family carried scars. But then his gaze touched mine again, and the stories wavered like smoke. Jun positioned himself at my side, watchful. Always watchful. He didn't trust Joel. He didn't trust anyone. His presence should have steadied me. Instead, it sharpened my awareness of Joel's presence across the room. Don't stare, Jun murmured without looking at me. I'm not, I whispered back. You are, he said, and he knows it. Heat rushed up my neck. I tore my eyes away, focusing on Mrs. Dwyer rambling about board members and their affairs. But no matter how much I listened, my skin remembered the weight of Joel's eyes. When the speeches ended and the music softened into something meant for dancing, I found my escape in the balcony. The winter air hit like a blessing, cold and unflinching. Below, the city stretched in ribbons of light. I let my shoulders drop. I let my lungs fill with air that didn't smell like champagne or pretense. And then I felt him. The shift in the air wasn't imagined. It was real, like the magnetic tug of the earth itself. My fingers curled around the railing as footsteps approached. You shouldn't stand out here alone. Joel's voice slid into the night. Low, smooth, too calm for the chaos he caused inside me. I turned. He was framed in the doorway, moonlight glinting off the scar in his brow. He hadn't taken off his suit jacket, but his tie hung loose, undone. It made him look less like a guest and more like a man who'd already conquered the room and grown bored of it. And yet, Here I am, I said, sharper than I intended. His mouth tugged faintly, not quite a smile. You sound like your father. The word stung. And that's supposed to be an insult? Supposed to be, he echoed, stepping closer, but not to you. The distance shrank until only the railing separated us. The city's hum below faded. All I could hear was my pulse, too quick, too loud. I know what you've heard about me, Joel said. His voice was measured, deliberate. I know what he's told you, but there are always two sides, Kaliana. Hearing my name in his voice again was a shockwave. It felt branded into me. You think I'll believe your side? I asked. I think you already don't believe his. My breath hitched. His eyes searched mine, not demanding, not pleading, just steady, as though he had all the time in the world to wait for me to admit the cracks in my loyalty. I wanted to deny it, to tell him my father's word was gospel. But the memory of the hushed voices behind the mahogany door, the mention of Anton's ghost labour, the subtle panic in Jern's glance, those truths tangled with Joel's calm certainty, and suddenly, I wasn't sure where the lies ended. You don't know me, I whispered. He leaned closer, close enough that I caught the cedar and iron of his scent again. No, he said softly, but I will. The words weren't a promise, they were inevitability. A door opened behind us, spilling laughter from the ballroom. I startled back as if I'd been caught doing something illicit. Joel didn't move. His gaze lingered on me like a mark I couldn't scrub away. Enjoy your evening, Miss Hayes, he said at last, his tone slipping into cool politeness, the mask he wore for the world. But the undercurrent, the certainty remained. When he disappeared into the warmth and light of the gala, I stayed frozen against the railing, breath fogging the night, heart betraying me with every unsteady beat. I should hate him. I was raised to hate him. Instead, I was afraid, because fate had already chosen a different path. And Joel Alvarez was standing at the centre of it. The gala blurred after the balcony. Every laugh, every champagne toast, every handshake, it all passed like a painting smeared by careless fingers. My father basked in admiration. My brothers plotted their inheritances in corners, and the donors congratulated themselves on their own generosity. But me, I couldn't stop feeling him. Every time Joel Alvarez moved, the thread inside me pulled taut. It wasn't obsession. I knew what obsession looked like. This was different, uninvited, merciless, like my body had decided it knew something my mind refused to admit. When the clock struck midnight, my father declared the evening a triumph. The guests drifted into the cold night with favours tucked into velvet boxes. I performed my role to perfection, smiling until my cheeks ached, nodding at every parting promise. Only when the last flashbulb dimmed did I slip away. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Without music and chatter, its vastness felt cavernous, swallowing sound. I padded down the marble hall, heels dangling from my hand, the echo of my bare steps soft as secrets. And then I felt it again. That invisible tug. A presence. I froze near the winter garden doors. The glass panes reflected moonlight, and him. Joel stood alone among the skeletal trees, coat thrown over his shoulders, head tilted like he was listening to the earth itself. The snow at his feet hadn't melted. He didn't belong here. He didn't belong anywhere near me. And yet, I opened the door. Cold rushed in, biting my skin, but it was nothing compared to the frost that locked his gaze to mine. You should have left with the others, I said, voice trembling, more from something inside than the winter air. I wasn't finished, Joel answered. His tone was calm, but underneath lay something raw, something dangerous. Finished with what? His eyes caught the moonlight, and for a heartbeat I swore they burned silver. Fighting fate. I should have laughed, should have walked away. Instead, my chest tightened. My pulse climbed as if racing to meet his. Don't, I whispered. Don't say things like that. Why? He stepped closer. Slow, deliberate, as if approaching a wild creature he didn't want to startle. Because you'll believe me? His nearness was unbearable. The cold didn't touch me anymore. It was all him. The cedar, the iron, the storm of him. I was raised to hate you, I said, and I was raised to destroy your family. He answered without hesitation. Do you think I want this, Kaliana? That I asked for it? The honesty in his voice was a blade, sharp, cutting through the lies I'd wrapped myself in. What is this? I demanded, though my body already knew. The bond, he said simply. The one your father would burn kingdoms to deny. The one neither of us can break. My knees weakened, and I gripped the iron railing of the garden terrace. No, that's not possible. My mate is me, Joel finished. He stopped just short of touching me, close enough that the air between us vibrated. And you feel it. Don't you dare lie. I did. I felt it in my bones, in my blood, in the very breath I dragged into my lungs. The bond wasn't gentle, it was brutal. A chain forged in fire, linking me to the one man who could ruin me. Tears stung, unbidden, unwanted. Do you know what this means? If my father ever finds out, he will, Joel cut in. His voice hardened, no softness left. And when he does, he'll use it against you, against us. That's who he is. But I don't care, Kaliana, because fate doesn't take sides. It takes prisoners. The night roared in silence around us. Snowflakes fell, soft and indifferent. And in that frozen stillness, Joel Alvarez reached for me, not touching, just hovering, as though the smallest brush of his hand would set the world on fire. My chest heaved, my heart screamed, my body betrayed me. And I didn't step back. Kaliana. My father's voice cracked through the night like a whip. I jerked away, stumbling back from Joel, as if distance could erase what had just passed. Father stood at the threshold, fury disguised as calm, Jun shadowing him with unreadable eyes. Joel didn't move. He didn't flinch. He only looked at my father the way storms look at mountains. Inevitable. There you are, Father said to me, his smile razor thin. Inside, now. I opened my mouth to protest, but Joel spoke first. Good night, Mr. Hayes. You've raised an exceptional daughter. The words were polite. The look wasn't. Father's jaw clenched, but he didn't answer. He only tightened his grip on my arm and steered me back into the house. As the doors closed behind us, I caught one last glimpse of Joel standing in the snow, unshaken, watching me as though he'd already won a war neither of us had chosen. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if I wanted him to lose.
Hayes Security does 3 things well. Close ranks, cut feeds, and smile for the cameras while they do it. By the time my driver pulls around, the house has already changed shape. Lights bright, doors watched, new cameras sleeping behind old paintings. That's what power looks like when it's afraid. More locks, better lighting. I don't get in the car. 10 minutes, I tell Mateo. He doesn't argue. He never argues when I sound like I'm counting. I walk the perimeter once slow. Snow creaks under leather, breath smokes. The winter garden glows with its own captive moon. A glass box full of frosted bone trees. Where she stood. Kaliana. I don't like that the name fits here in my mouth among my habits. It doesn't feel like a win. It feels like a calculus problem I've been avoiding because I knew the answer. The bond hums low and constant like the building's boiler room. It is not romance, it is physics. Through the glass I see movement, a shadow breaking from other shadows, quick and precise. June. My mouth pulls, not quite a smile. Hayes' head of security moves like a man who swallows metal for breakfast and calls it fiber. He slides the exterior door open just enough to let the cold bite his face. You're still here. For now. You should go. You should tell your boss to stop setting traps he can't bait. June's gaze is a flat river. We baited you fine. You came. I would have come even if he'd sent a mailer and a Groupon, I say. We're past invitations. A muscle jumps in his cheek. He knows what I mean. June is the inconvenient sort of loyal, the kind that binds to a person, not a version of them. He's been trying to keep Kaliana alive since she had braids and bruised knees. The problem is her father plans around assets, and assets are usable, expendable, interchangeable. Daughters, too. You changed the angles on 5 cameras, June says. You noticed. You wore your tie loose to look less like a threat. Next time don't bother, we know what you are. What am I? His eyes flick once, almost bored. A man who reads blueprints while everyone else reads gossip. Compliment accepted. He lets a few seconds fall like snow. You took a walk in our garden. You rarely do anything without a reason. I had one. Try me. No. That's what I thought. He steps out just far enough that the door snags on his heel, keeping it from closing. Listen to me carefully, I'm not your enemy. You work for mine. I work for her safety. Sometimes those overlap, tonight they don't. He takes something from his coat, thin, black, glossy, and sets it on the stone ledge. A spare access card, a gift or a test. If you want to keep her breathing, don't use that here, not yet. He's not going to hurt her tonight. Tonight? Tomorrow he'll have a plan. He's already writing it in his head. There will be a lie in it. It will be elegant. June's voice smooths to steel. Don't give him a second plan. I look at the card and nod at June. You're helping me because she's going to walk toward the pain either way. He nudges the door open with his shoulder again. I'd rather the hand waiting for her isn't empty. He goes back inside without waiting for agreement. The door seals. I pocket the card anyway. Mateo clears his throat from the driveway like men do when they've decided not to comment on whatever they just watched their employer not do. I slide into the back seat. Home? He asks. Office. He doesn't say it's after midnight. He doesn't say you smell like a house that hates you. He drives. I spend the ride cataloging moves. Hayes will try to separate Kaliana from me physically first. He'll control schedules, devices, and routes. Then he'll attempt narrative. A public story that frames me as delusion, her as dutiful. Failing that, he'll go old school. Pressure points, bargains carved from bone. He believes he understands loyalty. He has no idea what a bond does to arithmetic. I open my phone and scroll to a photo I pretend I don't keep. 8 years ago. Younger men in an empty factory, unhappy light, a loading dock that smelled like copper. Anton Hayes smiling with all his teeth, signing his name while workers clocked out under a different name and went home to no insurance, no fingerprints, no proof they existed. Ghost labor, numbers that bled. I sent the file to the state. I sent the invoices to the press. Hayes called it an attack, I called it math. He built his myth on the back of a man who wasn't there to contradict him anymore. I lock the phone and close my eyes and let the city rock me into another kind of clarity. If Hayes traps her, I'll break the door. If he cages her with story, I'll set something on fire he can't afford to lose. If he tries his hand at choosing for her, well, we're well past invitations. Physics.
In the morning, my father brought flowers. This is how our house says sorry. A forest in the foyer, peonies in winter, flown in like foreign diplomats, glass vases aligned like soldiers, every petal perfect, every leaf a blade. I come downstairs, already in a soft grey dress he approves and boots he doesn't notice. Jun is hovering in the middle distance, visible enough to warn me, invisible enough to keep from baiting my father. The air tastes like cut stems and money. You look tired, my father says. His smile is the sort meant for press photos. I told Eleanor to cancel your meetings. I didn't give you my schedule. You don't need to, Callie. He kisses my hair as if the gesture were his to spend. You were wonderful last night. You always are. He leads me into the breakfast room with a hand at my elbow, his version of soft. There's an omelette waiting I won't touch and a carafe of coffee I will. He paused, watching the dark river fill the cup like it's proof of something. Mr. Alvarez made a generous pledge, he says lightly. Perhaps he's learned that the city is not a vending machine. Perhaps he learned it from watching you, I say, then regret the honesty like a burned tongue. He doesn't flinch. Fathers who survive this long in our world learn to take bullets to the face without leaking. It amuses me that you think I don't hear myself in you. You hear yourself everywhere. He laughs. It sounds like a well-tuned engine. Jun has asked that we increase your detail this week. I agreed. Increase it, I repeat. The coffee tastes like obedience. From what? Discrete presence becomes visible presence. 2 new drivers, alternate route mapping. Elena will adjust your public schedule. You mean cancel it? I mean protect you. From who? He folds his hands. His signet ring flashes. Don't insult both of us. I set the cup down carefully enough not to break the saucer. Last night, you invited a man you call your enemy into our house. I invited leverage, he corrects. Different creature. He stood in your winter garden, I say. He talked to your daughter. And my daughter stood there to listen. He tilts his head, considering. Tell me, Kaliana, did you like the sound of your name in his mouth? The question detaches all the air in my chest. There's no safe answer. I try anyway. You brought peonies in January. You don't get to ask me that. His smile disappears like lights going off in a building. I get to ask you anything I please. Jan coughs once and almost sound a message. This is the line. Do not leap. I press my palms to my thighs. What do you want? For you to remember that we are not like them. We keep our own. We don't break for pretty faces and someone else's myth. I'm not the one who invited a myth indoors. His eyes sharpen. I did it to put a leash on a narrative. If he's in my frame, he's not in charge of it. If he's in my house, he plays by my rules. If he thinks for 1 second that he can use you to pull me, I will end that delusion so thoroughly, the story will teach itself not to be told. I don't know why I say it. Maybe because my mouth is a traitor with good instincts. What if I'm not being used? Then, you're making a mistake I will correct. His voice goes quieter the way rivers do before a drop. We're going to the country house this weekend. A change of air, fewer cameras. You'll come, you'll rest. And this, he flicks a finger, meaning the bond, the man, the night, will pass like weather does. I'm not a forecast. You're a Hayes, he says, as if that were the same thing. He stands, already finished with me, and kisses my forehead like confession. Put on something warm. The car leaves at 10. He leaves before I can answer. He always does. June waits until the room remembers it has corners. Then he steps in, the way a wall steps in, quietly, and with consequences. He's nervous, he says. So, he buys flowers and armed drivers. He's nervous because he can't shoot a bond. I laugh, short and ugly. Is that what you call it too? A bond? I thought we didn't say that word here. It sounds unsophisticated, rural, superstitious. It sounds like physics, Jun says, and physics gets you whether you believe in it or not. I rub my thumb along the handle of the cup until it shines. He's taking me to the country. I heard. You'll be there. I'll always be there, he says simply. But there are parts of this I can't stand in front of. Like what? Like the part where you decide if you're going to let someone else choose your life for you. The words find a soft, rotten spot in me and push. Anger flares to cover it. Don't do the mental thing. Don't pretend there's ground under this. There isn't. There's a net someone else threw. He considers that, nods once. Then, learn to climb it. He puts something on the table. A white pawn from the travel chess set he keeps in the security room. Under it, the tiniest black dot made with a Sharpie. A mark I've watched him use to teach rookies how to notice what wants to be missed. Pocket, he says. I do. I don't ask why. Jun doesn't bring talismans. He brings tools. Do you trust him? I ask, surprising both of us with the pronoun. Which one? He asks, not surprised at all. Either, I say. Both. I trust what Hayes will do to stay Hayes, Jun answers, and I trust that Alvarez won't stop walking toward a door once he sees it. And me. You, he says, eyes softening just enough to feel like a bruise touched. I trust to choose the pain that leads you out, not the one that keeps you in. I can't breathe for a second. I nod like that will help. Pack a bag, he says, something you can run in. Jun, humour me. He takes a step back, becomes wall again. 10 o'clock. He leaves. I sit with my coffee until it's cold enough to see the truth in it. A dark surface, reflecting a ceiling I didn't build. Upstairs, I put on jeans and boots and a sweater that doesn't care if I cry into it. I fold a dress that will make my father think I'm trying. I slip the white pawn into the pocket where I keep my chapstick and old ticket stubs. I don't throw away. At 9:58, my phone buzzes with a text from a number that isn't a number. No name, no thread history, just a single line. Pick the seat behind the driver. I stare at it until all the words go unreadable with heat. Physics. At 10 o'clock, I walk to the car with my coat, open to the cold, and Jun 2 steps behind me, and my father's favourite lie in my throat. I'm fine. I take the seat behind the driver. The bond settles beside me, like something that plans to learn all my exits. I close my eyes and try to remember how to be a person who doesn't map every room. It feels as remote as last summer. The house gets smaller in the rear window. The city falls away. The road threads north like a decision I didn't make. 2 hours in, the driver kills the radio. It's a small thing, unremarkable. The kind of thing you only notice if you've been trained to log small things. Jun's hand goes to his jacket. My fingers go to the pawn in my pocket. My father's voice floats from the second car behind us through a call I don't answer. The trees close in like teeth. And somewhere on a different road, a man who reads blueprints is setting one on fire. The drive north felt endless, like we were being pulled into another world entirely. Snow thickened along the roadside, burying fields and fences, smothering the world into silence. The city disappeared behind us, replaced by a forest that seemed to grow closer with every mile. Father sat in the car behind, of course. My detail rode in front, heavy shadows behind tinted glass, and Jun, always Jun, watched every mirror as if danger would step out of the trees and ask for my hand. But danger was already inside me, a thread humming in my chest, invisible and merciless. Joel Alvarez. I pressed my palm to my pocket, feeling the faint outline of the white pawn June had given me. A strange comfort, A reminder that even walls sometimes left cracks. When the gates finally opened, the country house rose like a ghost from the snow. Stone walls, tall chimneys, windows dark with secrets. A fortress pretending to be a retreat. "Remember," Father said when we stepped out into the cold, "this is for your rest." Rest, as if chains wrapped in silk weren't still chains. Inside, the air smelled of pine smoke and polish. Fires crackled in hearths. Staff moved silently with trays of tea and folded blankets. Father guided me through the grand rooms like a host showing off a prize. "You'll find it quieter here," he said. "No distractions, no intrusions." No Joel. That was what he meant. But the bond didn't fade with distance. It pulsed inside me, stubborn as heartbeat, a reminder that fate couldn't be locked outside iron gates. At dinner, the table stretched long and glittering. Father at the head, my brothers scattered like lieutenants. Jun in the shadows, a sentinel in plain sight. I sat where I always sat, between loyalty and obedience. The conversation was polite, sharp-edged, investments, city contracts. Father's voice cutting through like a knife carving meat. I nodded where I was supposed to, spoke when prompted, smiled when required. But every now and then, my mind betrayed me. I'd glance at the door, half expecting him to walk in. Joe Alvarez, uninvited, unafraid, with storm grey eyes and a scar that ruined nothing. I nearly dropped my fork when Father's gaze snapped to me. "Distracted?" he asked lightly. Too lightly. "Just tired," I said. "Good," he replied, pouring wine like blood into crystal. "Tired people make fewer mistakes." Later, I found Jun in the library, checking windows that had been checked twice already. He didn't turn when I entered. "He's going to test you," June said quietly. "Father?" "Yes." He adjusted a lock, clicked it once. "He'll try to find where you bend, and if you don't bend, he'll decide where to break you." My throat tightened. "And Joel?" Jun finally turned, studying me with the patience of someone who'd been watching me my whole life. Joel Alvarez doesn't strike me as a man who waits for doors to be opened. The white pawn in my pocket felt heavier. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, too watchful. I wandered to the balcony outside my room, snowflakes drifting like ash from the black sky. And there it was. A light in the trees beyond the gates. Just one, steady, waiting. I knew, without knowing how, that it was him. The bond tightened until it hurt. My breath fogged against the cold glass. Joel Alvarez hadn't been left behind. He'd come to find me. And the walls of this country house, my father's fortress, suddenly felt like the thinnest paper. The night pressed heavy against the windows, so quiet I could hear the tick of the old grandfather clock 3 rooms away. I stood barefoot on the balcony, staring at the steady light flickering in the forest. A signal, though no one else would read it as such. My heart whispered his name with every beat. Joel. The glass door creaked behind me. I spun around, guilt hot in my throat, half expecting Father to appear and drag me back inside. But it was Jun. He stepped out, his coat collar pulled high, his eyes already on the trees. "You saw it too," I said, though it wasn't a question. Jun nodded once. "He's close." "Then why doesn't he leave? Father will—" "Your father doesn't know," June cut in. His gaze stayed on the dark line of the forest. "Not yet. If he did, we'd both be standing in separate rooms with locked doors." The words chilled me more than the winter air. June glanced at me then, eyes narrowing as if weighing something. "Do you want me to make it go away?" The question should have been simple. My father would have said yes without hesitation. But I wasn't him. And the bond between Joel and me thrummed louder, answering for me. "No," I whispered. June's jaw tightened. Then, you'd better prepare for what comes next. Hours later, the house was asleep. Fires burned low, guards paced the halls. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling beams, the pawn still in my pocket under the blanket. Then came the sound. Soft, deliberate. A click where no click should be. I sat up, heart racing, straining to hear. The lock on my balcony door eased back. The curtain shifted in the draft. And then he was there. Joe Alvarez inside my father's fortress, stepping out of the shadows as though the house itself had invited him. My breath caught, torn between terror and relief. "Are you insane?" I hissed. "If my father finds you—" "He won't," Joel said calmly, his voice low and steady. "Not tonight." I pushed to my feet, hands trembling. "You shouldn't be here." "And yet," he murmured, eyes locking on mine, "here I am." The bond flared between us, so strong I could almost see it, silver threads lashing us together. My knees weakened, the air thick with the scent of cedar and iron that always clung to him. "You risked everything," I whispered. He stepped closer, every movement slow, deliberate. "So did you, when you didn't walk away from me in the garden?" My pulse thundered. I wanted to push him back, to demand why he couldn't just let me live in the cage my father built. But the words tangled into something else. "What do you want from me?" His answer came without hesitation. "The truth." "The truth?" "That your father isn't who you think he is," Joel said. His voice hardened. "That the feud isn't what he told you. That everything he built came from lies and the blood of men he left behind." The words sliced through me. The same accusations I had overheard days ago, spoken now in the stillness of my room. "You expect me to believe you?" I whispered. "I expect you to feel what's real," Joel said. His hand lifted, stopping just short of my cheek. "And this," his eyes darkened, storm clouds swallowing the silver, "is the one thing neither of us can deny." The bond surged like a second heartbeat. My chest ached with it. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. And for the first time, I understood what Jun had meant. This wasn't just a trap. It was a choice. Before I could answer, heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. Father's voice carried, sharp and too close. Joel's head snapped toward the sound. In a blink, he crossed the room, slipped back through the balcony doors, and vanished into the night. The curtain swayed, cold air rushing in where he'd been. I shoved the door closed just as my father entered, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk. "You're awake?" "Yes," I said, forcing calm. "I couldn't sleep." His gaze lingered on me, suspicious, but he said nothing more. He only nodded once. "Rest. Tomorrow we'll be busy." When he left, the silence returned, but I wasn't fooled. The house wasn't safe, it never had been. Because Joel Alvarez had just proven something terrifying. No lock in my father's world could keep him out. And no chain in my father's hand could keep me away. Morning came, but the shadows of the night clung to me. I could still feel Joel's presence in my room, the way his voice threaded into my blood, the weight of truth in his words. The bond pulsed like a bruise. Every breath reminded me of him. Every heartbeat betrayed me. At breakfast, my father presided at the head of the table as if he were king of a country only he believed in. My brothers laughed too loudly, their jokes sharpened into knives. Jun stood at his usual place, silent, but I could feel his eyes on me searching for cracks. I forced myself to eat. Every bite was ash. "Today," Father announced, slicing into his eggs as if announcing a war, "we'll ride the grounds. The donors will want photographs of the estate in spring. It's never too early to prepare. A ride, outside the gates, into the forest. My pulse leapt before I could stop it. Joel would be there. I knew it as surely as I knew my own name. Snow crunched under the hooves of Father's prized stallion. I rode beside him, the winter air biting my cheeks, the sky pale with a weak sun. Guards flanked us, their eyes scanning the trees. And then, just a flicker. A shadow between the pines. A presence. I kept my head straight, but my heart hammered. Joel was watching. My father's voice cut through the air. This land is ours because we took it. Don't forget that, Callie. Nothing is given in this world. Everything must be claimed. His words should have sounded like wisdom. Instead, they rang like confession. I swallowed hard. And if what's claimed wasn't yours to begin with? His gaze snapped me, sharp as a blade. For a moment, silence stretched like wire. Then he smiled, a thin, dangerous thing. You've been listening to ghosts. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because through the corner of my eye, I saw him again. Joel Alvarez, standing at the tree line, his eyes locked on mine. The bond flared so strong it stole my breath. Father didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and chose to let the silence hang like a trap. That evening, I found a note tucked beneath the book on my nightstand. A slip of paper, the handwriting sharp, deliberate. Library, midnight. My hands shook as I folded it back into the pages. At midnight, the house slept. Fires dimmed, guards rotated. I slipped into the library, the room thick with the scent of leather and smoke. And he was there. Joel stepped out from the shadows, his grey eyes storm dark, his presence filling the room as if he belonged to it. You shouldn't risk this, I whispered, my voice trembling. I've risked worse, he said, but I won't risk you being blind. He crossed to the desk and laid down a folder. Old contracts, photographs, documents stamped with seals I recognised. My father's name in signatures, next to Anton's. This, Joel said, voice like iron, is the truth. Your father didn't build an empire. He stole one. He signed deals that cost men their lives. And when Anton tried to expose it, he silenced him. I stared at the papers, my throat raw. Memories stirred. My uncle's sudden absence, whispered arguments behind closed doors, the way Father's smile never reached his eyes when he spoke of Anton. You're lying, I whispered, but the words rang hollow. No, Joel said softly, stepping closer. I'm giving you what you've never been allowed to see. The bond pulsed, fierce and unrelenting. His nearness burned. I wanted to step back. I wanted to step forward. Instead, I whispered the only truth I had left. If my father finds you here, he'll kill you. Joel's gaze didn't waver. Then let him try. The library door creaked. Both of us froze. June's shadow filled the doorway. His eyes flicked from me to Joel, then to the documents spread across the desk. His jaw tightened. For a heartbeat, none of us moved. The house itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, Jern stepped inside, closing the door behind him with deliberate quiet. You're both out of your minds, he said flatly. Joel's shoulders squared. Are you going to stop us? June's gaze lingered on me, heavy, questioning, protective. Then he sighed, low and resigned. No, he said. But if you're going to burn this house down, you'd better be ready to walk through the fire. The folder burned in my mind long after Joel and June slipped out of the library. I couldn't unsee the signatures, the ghost labour rosters, Anton's name scrawled beside Father's like a silent witness, but Paper wasn't proof. Not to me. Not when my entire life had been shaped by Father's voice, telling me what was true. I needed to test him. Morning came brittle and cold. The country house gleamed with false serenity. Silver laid on the table, staff gliding like ghosts, fire snapping in the hearth. Father sat at the head, already in his tailored wool suit, a man who wore power like second skin. "You're quiet, Callie," he said, spreading marmalade on toast as if we were a family of saints. "Dreams? Again?" "No." My voice was even, careful. "Memories." He glanced at me amused. "Of what?" "Uncle Anton." I watched him closely, my words bait on a line. "I remember how you used to talk about him. You said he was loyal, that he sacrificed for the family." A pause. Barely a second, but I caught it. A slip in his perfect mask. "Yes," Father said smoothly. "Anton was useful." "Useful?" My tone sharpened. "That's not what you said when I was younger." Father's eyes narrowed, the smile thinning. "Children hear what they want to hear. Adults learn to interpret." I swallowed hard. He was too good at this, turning questions into illusions, answers into fog. "Why did he leave so suddenly?" I pressed. "Why don't we ever talk about him?" The knife in his hand stilled. He set it down with surgical precision, then looked at me with eyes that had cut men down without lifting a finger. "Because Anton chose betrayal," Father said softly. "And in this family, betrayal is death." The words hit harder than I expected. He didn't say he died. He didn't say how, just betrayal and death, linked like gospel. I hid my shaking hands in my lap. Later, I found Jun in the stables, checking the bridles as though the horses themselves could be trained to detect lies. He didn't look up when I entered. "You pushed him," Jun said. I froze. "How do you—" "I know the look on your face when you play with fire." He tugged a strap tighter. "Tell me, did you see flames?" I thought of Father's pause, the blade of his words, the way betrayal had dripped off his tongue like poison. "Yes," I whispered. Jun exhaled slow and heavy. "Then you'd better be careful, Kaliana, because men like him don't put out fires. They drown them in gasoline." That night, unable to sleep, I wandered the winter garden. The glass ceiling trapped moonlight, turning frost into diamonds. For a moment, I almost felt at peace. Then, a hand brushed mine. I gasped, spinning. Joel. He stepped from the shadows, his presence overwhelming, his eyes burning in the pale light. "You shouldn't—" I couldn't stay away. His voice was a low storm. "Not while he feeds you lies." I asked him, I confessed, words tumbling out. I asked about Anton. He said betrayal is death. Joel's jaw clenched. Then he admitted it. My throat closed. "So it's true?" "It's worse than you think," Joel said, stepping closer. "Anton didn't betray him. Your father betrayed us. Anton tried to stop the ghost labor. He threatened to expose it, and your father silenced him." The ground shifted under me. The walls of the country house, the name Hayes, the blood in my veins. Suddenly, none of it felt solid. Joel reached out, finally touching me. Just my hand, but the bond flared so violently I nearly collapsed. His thumb brushed my knuckles, steady anchoring. "You don't have to believe me yet," he murmured. "But when you're ready, I'll show you everything." The glass above us cracked faintly under the weight of snow. I couldn't tell if it was the house breaking or me. The door at the end of the garden opened. Father's silhouette appeared, tall and dark, his presence colder than the night air. "Kaliana," he said, his voice smooth and dangerous. "What are you doing out here?" Joel's hand slid away before I could answer. He melted into the shadows, silent as breath. I turned, forcing calm, forcing innocence. Just looking at the snow. Father's eyes swept the garden, suspicion sharpening like a blade. For one terrible moment, I thought he saw the ghost of Joel Alvarez still lingering in my eyes. Then he smiled, too slow, too thin. Snow is beautiful, he said, but it hides everything it buries. Remember that. And with that, he left. But the warning wasn't about snow. It was about me.
I never liked country houses. They're built to feel eternal, but underneath the stone and the chandeliers is always the same thing. Fear. Fear disguised as legacy, as tradition, as empire. Hayes's house was no different. For 2 nights I'd moved along its edges like a shadow, never stepping in too far, never long enough for the guards to catch more than a flicker. But last night in the garden I'd come too close to her, too close to being seen. Her father was clever. His suspicion lingered in the walls like smoke after a fire. I could feel it, which meant my time was running out. But the bond made patience impossible. It pulled at me, constant, relentless. Every time I tried to leave, it dragged me back like a tide. Caliana Hayes was in that house, buried under her father's lies, and no matter how many gates or guards he threw up, I would not leave her there. Tonight I chose risk. Mateo stayed with the car on the north road. I slipped through the trees, timing the patrols, cutting the cameras Hayes had installed last week. He thought new locks would stop me. He forgot that men like me are built to break patterns. By the time I reached the east wing balcony, the house was asleep, but not silent. Country houses breathe differently at night, all wood creaks and muffled pipes. I stepped through an unlocked door, June's touch no doubt, and into a study. Dark wood, heavy books, the faint perfume of old cigars. And there she was. Kaliana stood by the fireplace, hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a sweater too big for her frame. She looked less like Hayes's daughter and more like herself, whoever that was. The bond hummed, aching, furious, alive. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, though her eyes said something else. I shut the door behind me. That's starting to sound like a prayer more than a warning. Her lips parted, but she didn't step back. She never did. For all her fear, Caliana Hayes was the kind of woman who held her ground even when the earth cracked. I set the folder down on the desk between us, more papers, more ghosts. "You asked him about Anton, you saw how he flinched." She nodded, slow. "He said betrayal is death. Then he told you everything without meaning to." I opened the folder, spreading the photographs across the desk. Anton's signature, the ghost payrolls, the state records. Anton wasn't the traitor, your father was. And when Anton tried to expose him, he buried the evidence along with the man. Her eyes trembled, but she didn't look away. She traced Anton's name on the paper with her fingertip like it might come alive under her touch. "Why show me this?" she asked. "Why risk it?" "Because you're not his pawn," I said. The bond surged, hot in my veins. "And because I don't want you to look back one day and wonder if anyone ever told you the truth." She looked up at me then, and the bond roared. It was more than attraction, more than fate. It was recognition, the kind you don't ask for but can't deny. Her breath hitched, and I felt it in my chest like it was my own. I stepped closer. She didn't move. "If I touch you," I said, voice rougher than I meant, "I don't think I'll be able to stop." Her whisper cracked the air between us. "Then don't stop." The distance vanished. My hand found her jaw, tilting her face up to mine. Her skin burned under my palm, soft and real in a world full of lies. And then footsteps, and heavy, purposeful. We broke apart, silent but too late. The door slammed open. Her father stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards. His eyes cut to me first, then to her, then to the papers spread across the desk. For a heartbeat, his mask slipped. Rage cracked through like lightning. "Alvarez," he said, his voice low and venomous. "In my house." Kaliana gasped. "Father, quiet," he snapped, not looking at her. His gaze was fixed on me, sharp enough to draw blood. "I should have known you wouldn't stay in the shadows." I straightened, meeting his fury with calm. "Shadows are where men like you hide, Hayes. I prefer the light." The guard stepped forward. My hand went to the knife at my belt, hidden under my coat. Kaliana's hand shot out, grabbing my arm, pleading without words. "Enough," she whispered. "Please." But Hayes only smiled, thin and cruel. "You want her?" he asked softly, almost amused. "Then let's see what you're willing to lose." The air thickened, the bond screaming in my chest. This wasn't just a feud anymore, this was war. And I had just stepped onto the battlefield. The guards moved first, muscle and obedience in tailored suits. But Hayes didn't need them. His presence filled the room heavier than stone. He watched me with the patience of a man who had survived too many storms to flinch at thunder. "Drop the knife," one guard barked. I didn't. I let the blade gleam under the firelight, just enough to remind them I hadn't come here unarmed. Hayes chuckled, low and dry. "Always so theatrical, Alvarez. I suppose you inherited that from your father." "Careful," I said. My voice came out steadier than the fire snapping in the hearth. "You don't want to talk about fathers right now." His smile thinned. "You broke into my house, put your hands on my daughter and spread lies across my desk like confetti, and you think you'll walk out alive?" "Not lies," I said, tapping one of the contracts with the knife's edge. "Numbers, payrolls, names of men who never made it home. Proof of what you buried. Anton wasn't the traitor, you were." The mask cracked for a flicker. His eyes sharpened into razors, but his voice stayed smooth. "My daughter doesn't need saving, least of all by you." I glanced at Kaliana. Her face was pale, but her chin was raised, defiant. The bond hummed between us like a current neither of us could cut. "She doesn't need saving," I agreed. "She needs the truth." Hayes slammed his hand on the desk, rattling the glasses. The truth is power, Alvarez, and power belongs to those who can hold it without bleeding." I stepped forward, close enough to see the pulse twitch in his jaw. "Then maybe it's time you bled." The guards tensed, waiting for the order. Hayes raised a hand, stopping them. His gaze never left mine. "Do you know why you'll lose, Joel?" he asked softly. "Because you confuse destiny with choice. You think some bond written in your blood gives you the right to her. But she's mine. She always has been." My hand tightened on the knife. Every word was poison. Every word made the bond scream for me to tear him down. "Wrong," I said. "She's not yours, and the day she realizes it will be the day your empire starts to burn." For the first time, Hayes's smile faltered, just a crack, but I saw it. He leaned in, his voice a whisper meant for me alone. "Then burn with me, boy." The guard to my right lunged, steel flashed. I sidestepped, slamming him into the bookcase, the knife pressing against his throat before he could blink. The other drew his weapon, but Hayes's voice cut through. "Stand down," he ordered. The guard froze mid-step. The room smelled of leather and bloodlust. My blade pressed harder, the man's pulse jumping against it. Hayes's eyes glinted. "Do it, Alvarez. Spill blood under my roof. Let her see what you really are." Behind me, Kaliana's voice cracked. "Stop." It was enough to hold me, enough to keep me from driving the blade through. I shoved the guard away, hard enough that he stumbled but didn't kill him. My hand still shook with the urge. Hayes's smile returned, cruel and knowing. "That's what makes you weak. You don't finish what you start." "No," I said, sliding the knife back into my belt. That's what makes me different from you. Hayes straightened, brushing invisible dust from his sleeve. You will leave this house tonight. If I see you again near my daughter, there will be no talk, no warnings. Only a grave. I met his gaze, unflinching. Then dig one for yourself too, because I'm not leaving her. The air between us was fire and frost, the bond pulsing louder with every breath. Kaliana stood between us, trembling but unbroken, caught in the gravity of two worlds colliding. Hayes finally turned to her. You see, Kali, this is the kind of man he is. A trespasser, a thief, a liar. I stepped closer, refusing to let his words be the last. No, Kaliana, I'm the man who tells you the truth even when it breaks me. Her eyes flicked between us, wide, torn. I saw it there, the fracture, the choice coming. Hayes snapped his fingers. The guards moved again, this time to surround me. Take him out, he said coldly, alive. The bond roared inside me, fate tightened its grip, and I smiled. Try.
The library erupted into movement. Guards closed in, shadows lunging with fists and steel, while Joel stood in their center, calm as if he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. I froze for half a heartbeat, my lungs locked, until the first punch flew. Joel ducked, fast, blade flashing from his belt. He slashed across a guard's sleeve, just enough to draw blood, not enough to kill. Another guard lunged from behind, but Joel twisted, driving his elbow back into the man's ribs. The crack echoed against the bookshelves. "Stop it!" I cried, but no one listened. Father leaned against the desk, watching like it was theatre staged for him. His smile was razor-thin. Let her see, Kali. Let her see what kind of animal he is. But all I saw was survival. Controlled, precise, a storm contained by will. Joel wasn't lashing out blindly. He was measuring every move, keeping me in his line of sight even as the guards circled. One guard lunged with a knife. Joel caught his wrist, twisted, and the blade clattered to the floor. Before the man could recover, Joel kicked his knee out and sent him sprawling. The other tried to grab him from behind. Joel spun, slammed him into the wall, and pressed his own knife to the man's throat. Silence. Just panting, ragged and raw. The guard stilled, waiting. Joel's chest heaved, his hand trembled on the blade, and then he looked at me. The bond screamed, silver fire burning through my veins. "Say the word," he rasped, his eyes locked on mine, "and I'll end this." Father's smile widened. "Do it, Alvarez. Prove me right. Show her your hands are as bloody as mine." My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. Joel wasn't asking me for permission to kill. He was asking me who I belonged to. "Joel," I whispered, stepping forward. My hand shook, but my voice steadied. "Don't." For a long, brute moment, he didn't move. His jaw clenched, muscles straining, the knife pressing hard enough to break skin. The guard whimpered. Then Joel exhaled, sharp and ragged, and shoved the man away. The knife dropped to his side. "I'm not you," he said to my father, voice like gravel. The words cut deeper than any blade. For the first time, I saw a crack in Father's mask. His jaw twitched, his eyes darkened, and I knew he hated Joel, not just for surviving, but for refusing to become him. "Enough," Father said, his voice flat, dangerous. "Get him out of my sight." The guards closed in again, but slower this time, wary of Joel's precision. Joel didn't resist. He kept his eyes on me, grey storms burning with something I couldn't name. "I'll come back for you," he said, voice low but certain. "Nothing will keep me from you." My chest ached. My lips parted, but no words came. Only silence, only the bond thrumming louder than my heartbeat. Father's gaze snapped to me. He saw it. He saw everything. And that was when I realized Joel wasn't the only one who had crossed the line tonight. So had I. Father didn't yell. He never did. Rage in his hands was quieter than silence and sharper than steel. After the guards dragged Joel away, the library reeked of sweat and blood and something worse. Fear, mine, his, everyone's but Father's. He stood at the desk, brushing the wrinkles from his sleeve, as though violence was just dust to be swept away. "Sit," he said. I didn't move. His eyes flicked to me, cold as glass. "Now, Kaliana." My knees bent before my pride could stop them. I sat in the chair opposite him, my fingers twisting in my lap. Father studied me, his face unreadable, his hands folded neatly. Behind him, the fire burned low, casting long shadows that turned him into something larger, darker. "You disappointed me tonight." His voice was calm. Too calm. My throat went dry. "I didn't. You protected him," he cut in, voice like a blade sliding between ribs. "When you should have protected yourself, your family, me." "He would have killed them," I said, though I wasn't sure if I was defending Joel or myself. "I stopped him." Father leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "No, you stopped yourself. You let that bond," he spat the word like venom, "pull you like a puppet. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." The word echoed inside me. Bond. He knew. I lowered my eyes, but it didn't matter. He saw everything. He always did. He rose and circled me, slow, deliberate, like a predator measuring prey. "I built this empire on loyalty," he said, voice low, each word heavy, "on knowing where every thread was tied. And you," his hand brushed my shoulder firm, possessive, "are my most valuable thread. I will not lose you to him." I shivered, both from the heat of the fire and the ice in his touch. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." His hand tightened. "That man isn't your mate. He's a weapon, sent by fate, perhaps, but sharpened by his own hunger. He wants to use you to cut me open, and you're letting him." Anger flared through my fear. I lifted my head, meeting his gaze. "And if you're wrong? If the lies are yours, not his?" For the first time, I saw it. A flash of something raw, dangerous in his eyes. Not fear, not guilt, just fury I dared to speak. "Careful," he said softly. "You're walking on glass." That night, I wasn't allowed back to my own room. Guards escorted me down a narrow hallway to a smaller chamber at the back of the house. The windows were barred, the door locked from the outside. A gilded cage. My father's idea of protection. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, staring at the wall, the silence pressing in. The bond throbbed inside me, restless, angry, alive. I could feel Joel out there, not close, not far, just there. Like a heartbeat I couldn't silence. I pulled the pawn from my pocket, turning it over in my hand. White, with a black dot at the base. A reminder, a warning. Maybe a promise. Jun had slipped it to me for a reason. I closed my eyes, clutching it tight, and whispered to the empty room, "You'll come back, won't you?" And the bond answered, not in words, but in heat and ache and certainty. Yes. The barred window licked moonlight across the floor in crooked lines. I sat on the bed, sleepless, clutching the pawn until its edges dug into my palm. The silence wasn't silence, it was listening. The house itself was awake, ears pressed to the walls, waiting for me to break. I thought of Joel, dragged out of the library by Father's guards. I thought of his words, "I'll come back for you." The bond pulsed like a second heartbeat, reminding me it wasn't just a promise, it was inevitability. A click at the door broke the stillness. My head snapped up. The lock turned once, twice. Then the door eased open just wide enough to reveal Jun. He slipped inside, shutting it behind him. His eyes flicked to my hand, where the pawn still rested, before settling on my face. Oh, you're running out of time, he said quietly. He pulled something from his coat pocket, a thin, black device no bigger than a card. He set it on the bed beside me. A skeleton key, he said. It'll get you through most of the doors in this house, but only once. After that, the system will register the breach. My chest tightened. You're helping me escape. Jun shook his head. I'm giving you a choice. If you stay, he'll smother you until you forget what freedom feels like. If you go, his jaw clenched, you'll have to live with what that bond brings. Joe Alvarez isn't a safe harbor, Kaliana. He's a storm. My fingers curled around the device. And you want me to choose the storm? I want you to choose for yourself. His gaze softened just a fraction, something your father never let you do. Why? I whispered. You've stood at his side for years, protected him, protected me. Why now? Jun leaned against the wall, arms folded. Because I've spent years protecting a girl who wasn't allowed to breathe without permission, and I'm done watching you drown in someone else's rules. The words hit deep, cutting through the fear, through the chains my father wrapped around me. Joel isn't perfect, Jun continued, but neither is this cage. At least with him, the bars aren't invisible. I stared at the skeleton key, the pawn, the barred window. My father's empire weighed heavy on my shoulders, a legacy built on lies and silence. And then I thought of Joel's hand on mine in the garden, the way the bond had lit up every nerve in my body, undeniable and fierce. The storm was waiting. I slipped the pawn into my pocket, closed my hand around the key and stood. When? I asked. June's eyes met mine, steady, unflinching. Tomorrow night, during the shift change. I'll cover you. After that, he shook his head. You're on your own. The fear in my chest didn't vanish, but for the first time it felt lighter, like air rushing in after years of being held under. When June left, I sat in the dark, the key cold in my palm. I whispered into the silence, not knowing if Joel could hear, but hoping the bond would carry it. Hold on, I'm coming. And somewhere beyond the trees, beyond the walls, the bond surged back, heat, steady, and certain. A storm answering a call. The country house wore suspicion like perfume the next morning. Guards lingered in doorways that never needed guarding. Staff whispered less, moved slower. Father's eyes followed me even when his head was bent over the paper. He knew. Not everything, but enough. The bond. Joel. Maybe even that I wasn't breaking the way he wanted. I kept my face smooth, my voice soft, my steps measured. Inside, my pulse rattled like a trapped bird. The skeleton key pressed against my thigh through the pocket of my dress, heavy as guilt. Jun had risked everything by giving it to me. If father even suspected... I pushed the thought away. Thinking too loud felt dangerous. At lunch, father set down his fork and spoke as though continuing a conversation I hadn't heard. Choice is an illusion, Callie. People tell themselves they choose, to love, to follow, to rebel. But in truth, all they do is reveal what was inside them from the start. I forced a sip of wine, steadying my hands. And what was inside you? His smile didn't reach his eyes. A willingness to do what others could not. The table went silent. My brothers lowered their gazes. Jun stood in the corner like carved stone, but his eyes met mine for a split second, enough to say, "Careful." I lowered my gaze. Of course, father. Satisfied, he leaned back, sipping his wine. Good girl. But my chest burned, not with obedience, with defiance I couldn't say aloud. That night, the air was restless. Snow fell in slow spirals outside the windows, soft and deceiving. Guards paced louder, boots echoing like warnings. I couldn't sleep. I paced my small chamber, the skeleton key in one hand, the pawn in the other. The bond thrummed stronger tonight, urgent, restless. And then, like a shadow stitched to the dark, I saw him. Through the bars of my window, across the snow and trees, Joel stood, not moving, just watching. My breath caught. I pressed my palm to the cold glass. The bond surged, silver fire threading from me to him, bridging distance, defying walls. He didn't signal, didn't move, just waited, steady as stone, as if to say, when you're ready, I'll be here. The door banged open. I jerked back from the window. Father stood in the doorway, his silhouette filling the frame. 2 guards flanked him, silent as shadows. You're restless, he said. His eyes swept the room, sharp, searching. I steadied my breath. The snow makes it hard to sleep. Does it? His voice was soft, dangerous. Or is it the bond scratching at your walls? My heart lurched. He knew. I forced a calm I didn't feel. I don't know what you mean. He stepped closer, his hand brushing my hair back like I was still a child. You're mine, Kaliana. No bond, no Alvarez, no trick of fate will change that. The words pressed cold chains around my chest, but inside, something sparks, fierce and unyielding. No, I whispered, too soft for him to hear. Or maybe he did, because his hand tightened just for a moment before he let go. Sleep, he ordered, stepping back. Tomorrow will be decisive. The door shut, the lock clicking into place. I stood in the dark, breath shaking, fury burning. Tomorrow, he was planning something final. I looked at the skeleton key in my palm, then at the faint outline of Joel beyond the trees. Tomorrow, I thought, clutching the pawn tight. Tomorrow, I won't be in this cage.
The forest around Hayes's country house is the kind of silence men pay for. Thick, old, untouched. But tonight it feels like a stage. Snow soaks into my boots, cold gnawing up my legs. I've been here for hours, still as a shadow, eyes fixed on the one window that matters. I can feel her. The bond isn't a whisper anymore, it's a drumbeat under my skin. She's scared, but she's burning. I know that burn, it's the one you feel right before you do something you can't undo. Mateo crouches a few feet behind me, scanning the tree line. You're sure about this? I've never been surer about anything, I murmured. She's still inside, security doubled. Hayes has been moving staff all day, feels like he's preparing for something. He is. I can read Hayes the way I read blueprints. He's building a cage, not a home. He's setting a trap with her at the center. What time's the shift change? I ask. Mateo checks his watch. 1:30, you'll have maybe 3 minutes between the old guards leaving and the new ones taking their posts. 3 minutes, not enough to fight, barely enough to breathe. But it will have to be enough. I unfold the small map of the service tunnels I memorized years ago. Back then, Hayes had laughed when the city demanded he build fire escapes under his private properties. He'd called them rat runs. Tonight they're my runs. June will cover her, Mateo says, if he's still on her side. He is, I say. He gave her something. I felt it. You felt it? I don't bother explaining. The bond is too deep for words. I can sense the weight of a pawn in her pocket, the way her hand closes around it, the way she's already rehearsing her next breath. Get the van ready, I tell him. Engine running, South Road, no lights. Mateo doesn't argue. He melts back into the trees. I stay, watching, waiting, counting heartbeats. At exactly 1:30, the lights in the east wing dim for a moment. Power rerouted as staff changed shifts. I watch the guards move like clock hands. One steps away from his post to smoke. Another heads to the kitchen door. And then I see her. Kaliana at the window, her face pale in the moonlight, hair loose, a shadow behind bars. She presses a hand to the glass just once. It's not a signal, it's a promise. The bond slams through me. My body moves before my mind does. I'm out of the trees, crossing the snow with the silent precision of a wolf. 2 minutes now. I slip into the service tunnel, the scent of damp stone and iron flooding my senses. My knife slides into my palm, not for killing, just for opening what doesn't want to open. The corridor ahead glows faint green from emergency lights. My footsteps are soundless. Halfway through, I hear it, a voice I know too well. Alvarez. June steps out of a side doorway, black coat blending with the shadows, pistol in one hand but pointed at the floor. You're late, he says quietly. I'm on time, I answer. Move. He doesn't. Hayes is planning something. You think you're breaking her out. He's waiting for you to try. I don't care. You should. June's eyes narrow. He's not trying to keep her, he's trying to break you. I step closer until we're eye to eye. Then let him try. June studies me for a long moment. Then he holsters the pistol and hands me a small card, the same skeleton key he gave her. She's in the north chamber, he says. End of the hall. If you're going to take her now, and Joel. His voice softens just a fraction. Don't leave me nothing to work with when this blows up. I nod once. Then I ran. The north hall is empty. My heart pounds a rhythm against the walls. The door to her chamber looms ahead, the lock glinting under dim light. I slide the key into the panel, a green flash. The lock clicks open. Inside, she sits on the bed, coat already on, eyes wide. You came, she whispers. I told you I would. She rises, crossing the room in 2 steps. The bond erupts between us like fire meeting oxygen. Then let's go, she says. I take her hand. We've got 90 seconds. And together we step out of the cage. Her hand fit into mine like it was always meant to be there, but there was no time to feel it. 90 seconds. That was all the gap June had bought us. We slipped into the hall, the door closing soft behind us. My knife was in my free hand, my body tuned to every sound. Kaliana's breath came fast, but her steps matched mine, light, quick, silent. She was stronger than she thought. The bond pulled tight between us, urging me forward, warning me when danger stirred. It was like moving with 2 hearts in one chest, hers pounding, mine anchoring. Where? She whispered. Service tunnel, I said. Stay close. We made it halfway down the corridor before the house woke up. A shrill alarm ripped through the silence, the sound of metal teeth grinding the night apart. Red lights bled down the walls, flashing in a violent rhythm. Hayes knew. I cursed under my breath. 90 seconds had turned into 30. Run, I said. We sprinted, our steps echoing against the stone. Shouts rang out behind us, guards flooding the halls, boots thundered closer. The tunnel door loomed ahead. I shoved the skeleton key into the panel, green flash. The lock hissed open. I pushed Kaliana through first. The air was damp and close, smelling of rust and earth. We ran through the narrow corridor, light strips flickering overhead. Behind us, the door slammed open, voices roared. They're in the tunnels. Kaliana stumbled once, but I caught her, yanking her upright without breaking pace. Don't stop, I hissed. Her eyes met mine, wild but unbroken. She nodded and we ran harder. Halfway through, a shadow blocked the path ahead. Hayes. He stood at the end of the tunnel, flanked by more guards, calm as if he'd been waiting all along. His coat was immaculate, his smile thin. "Did you think I wouldn't know, Joel?" His voice carried in the stone corridor, soft and lethal. "Did you think I wouldn't smell the bond on you the moment you stepped into my house?" Kaliana gasped, clutching my arm. The bond screamed, warning, fighting, alive. "Move," I growled. My knife gleamed in the flickering light. Hayes shook his head slowly. "No. You won't leave here, not with her." "Then you'll have to stop me," I said. His smile widened, cruel and certain. He lifted his hand. Signal. Guards surged forward. They came at us in a wave of black suits and iron fists. I shoved Kaliana behind me and met the first strike, steel ringing against steel. My knife flashed, carving shallow but precise, dropping one man with a cry. Another swung a baton. I caught it on my forearm and slammed my elbow into his jaw. "Joel!" Kaliana's scream tore through the chaos. A guard grabbed her wrist. The bond seared, fire shooting through me. I spun, blade slicing, sending the man sprawling. Kaliana stumbled into my arms, eyes wide with terror and fury. "We're not stopping," I growled. She nodded, breathless. Together we pushed through the wall of bodies, every strike fueled by the bond, every step closer to freedom. Hayes watched from the end of the tunnel, unmoving, his eyes burning with a father's wrath and a tyrant's pride. This wasn't just escape anymore. This was war. The tunnel shook with the weight of fists, boots, and rage. Guards came at me like teeth on a saw, endless, sharp, meant to grind me down. But I didn't break. Every strike, every cut, every breath had her in it. Kaliana. The bond burned through me like fire in the veins, telling me where to move, when to strike, when to shield. She was behind me, close enough that I could feel her pulse thrumming with mine. One guard lunged low. I caught him with my knee and dropped him flat. Another swung a baton. I blocked, twisted, shoved him into the wall hard enough to rattle stone. My knife carved shallow lines, precise enough to send pain but not death. I wasn't here to slaughter. I was here to take her out. "Keep moving," I barked, shoving Kaliana ahead as the tunnel forked left. We darted down the narrower passage, boots slapping against wet stone. The red alarm lights pulsed like a heartbeat, painting her pale face in blood-colored flashes. Behind us, Hayes's voice carried, calm, steady, terrifying. "You can't run forever, Alvarez. You think fate makes her yours. Fate is nothing but a leash, and I'm the one who holds it." The words lodged in my chest like iron. Kaliana's hand tightened in mine, trembling, but she didn't let go. Another guard blocked the hall, bigger, heavier, smart enough not to rush. He braced wide, a wall of muscle. I didn't slow. I hit him hard, knife flashing, elbow slamming into his throat. He staggered, choking. The bond screamed, "Left!" and I spun just in time to block another strike from behind. Kaliana gasped, her nails dug into my arm. "Joel!" I shoved the last man into the wall and dragged her forward. My chest burned, my arms ached, but I wasn't stopping. Not now, not with her so close. The tunnel door finally appeared ahead, metal and heavy. I slammed the skeleton key into the panel, praying the system hadn't locked us out. A green flash, the hiss of a release. The door swung open. Cold slammed into us, sharp as knives. Snow swirled in, wild and white, the forest stretching dark beyond. Freedom. I pulled Kaliana through. She stumbled into the snow, breath tearing from her lungs, eyes wide at the sudden open sky. For a heartbeat, I let myself feel it, the night air, the bond's fierce roar, her hand still tangled with mine. We'd made it. Then a gunshot split the night. Snow puffed at our feet. Another shot rang, whistling past my shoulder. Guards spilled from the tunnel behind us, and at their center, calm and immaculate as ever, stood Hayes. His pistol gleamed under the moonlight, steady in his hand, eyes locked on me. "You can bleed in my house," he called, voice carrying across the snow. "Or you can bleed in my woods, but bleed you will." Kaliana gasped, pressing closer against me. The bond screamed through my bones, urging me forward, urging me to fight. I tightened my grip on her hand, knife glinting in the other. "Then let's finish this outside," I growled, and together we ran into the snow.
The snow swallowed us whole. Trees loomed like black sentinels, branches clawing at the sky. My breath tore out in white plumes, my boots slipping on the ice as Joel dragged me deeper into the woods. Behind us, gunfire cracked. Bark splintered, snow sprayed. My father's men shouted, their voices weaving through the forest like hounds on a scent. But the bond screamed louder. "Run! Faster! Don't stop!" Joel never let go of my hand. His grip was iron, unyielding, pulling me forward when my legs wanted to give out. He moved like the forest belonged to him, knife flashing in his free hand, every step calculated, precise. "Down!" he barked, shoving me behind a fallen tree just as another shot rang out. The bullet chewed into the trunk where my head had been. I pressed against the wood, shaking, snow biting through my coat. My chest heaved, lungs burning. "Are you hurt?" Joel demanded. His face hovered close, eyes storm grey even in the moonlight. "No," I gasped. "Not yet." He gave a sharp nod, scanning the trees. "Then we keep moving." The forest came alive with pursuit. Flashlights cut through the dark, beams bouncing across trunks and branches. Men shouted, closing in. "Don't lose them." "They went east." Joel cursed under his breath. "He's driving us toward the ridge." "The ridge?" "Cliff drops 50 feet. He wants to box us in." Cold panic spiked in my gut. My father wasn't just chasing us. He was herding us. "What do we do?" I whispered. Joel's jaw clenched. "We break the herd." We sprinted again, weaving between trees. The snow was deeper here, dragging at my legs. I stumbled, nearly falling, but Joel caught me, yanking me upright without losing pace. "Don't quit on me now, Kaliana," he growled. "We're too close." My chest screamed, my legs burned, but I pushed harder. For him, for me, for the bond that refused to let me stop. Suddenly, a flashlight flared ahead, one of my father's men stepping from behind a tree. He raised his gun, eyes locking on me. I froze. Joel didn't. He slammed into the man, knife flashing, knocking the gun aside. The guard fell into the snow with a strangled cry. Joel didn't kill him. He didn't need to. He just kept us moving. But the noise gave us away. More voices rose, closer now. "They're here!" Joel yanked me toward a cluster of boulders, half buried in snow. He shoved me inside a narrow gap, crouching low until the dark swallowed us. I pressed against the cold stone, heart slamming in my ribs. Joel crouched beside me, knife still in hand, breath hot in the frozen air. Flashlights swept past, beams cutting over the rocks. Boots crunched snow so close I held my breath until my lungs ached. Men shouted, moved on, the noise fading into the distance. Silence fell again. Not safe, but close enough. I turned to Joel, trembling. "They'll kill you," I whispered. "If they catch us, they'll kill you." His eyes burned into mine, fierce and unyielding. "Then they'll have to catch me first." The bond surged, so strong it was almost unbearable. My body leaned into his, desperate, certain. His breath brushed my face, too close, too necessary. "Kaliana." His voice cracked on my name, rough and raw. I didn't move away. I couldn't. The storm had me now. The world outside our hiding place pulsed with danger. boots crunching snow, voices barking orders, the gleam of flashlights cutting through the dark. But inside the narrow shelter between the boulders, everything's narrowed to one thing. Him. Joel. His shoulder brushed mine, solid, warm even through the cold. His breath came ragged, misting in the air, so close I could almost taste it. The bond throbbed like a living thing, pulling me toward him until the space between us was unbearable. "Kaliana," he whispered, voice raw, "if we don't make it out..." "Don't." I cut him off. My throat tightened, but I forced the words. "Don't talk like that. We will." His hand trembled once before finding mine gripping hard. "I fought wars, lost men, buried family. Nothing has broken me until you." My chest ached. My father's lies, Joel's truths, the pool between us. It all collided until I couldn't breathe. "Then don't break," I whispered. "Not now, not with me." For a heartbeat, silence. Then he leaned in and the world shattered. Our lips met, fierce, desperate, burning. Snow fell around us, cold and infinite, but inside the bond lit up like fire and steel. Every nerve in me screamed yes. His hand cupped the back of my head, holding me like I was both fragile and infinite. I pressed closer, clinging to him as if the forest itself was trying to tear us apart. It wasn't gentle, it was survival. It was fate, clawing through our veins, binding us tighter than any chain my father could forge. When we broke apart, both of us gasping, Joel pressed his forehead against mine. "I swear," he said, voice shaking, "I'll never let him take you from me." A shout split the air. "Over here!" Light blazed across the snow, beams catching the edges of the rocks. Boots thundered closer. The hunters had found our trail. Joel jerked back, knife flashing into his hand again. His jaw hardened. Storm grey eyes burning. "Stay behind me." "No." My voice shocked us both. I grabbed his arm, fierce despite the tremor in my fingers. "I'm not just baggage you drag through this forest. I can fight." His gaze flicked to me, fire and disbelief colliding. Then, slowly he nodded once. "Then fight with me, not against me." The bond surged, sharp as steel, sealing the vow between us. The forest exploded in noise, guards shouting, guns cocking, beams of light bouncing. My father's men closed in from all sides. "You, Joel Alvarez," a voice bellowed. My father's voice. Smooth, cutting, confident. "End it now, and I'll show mercy. Keep running, and she'll pay for your defiance." Joel's knife gleamed. My heart thundered. The bond roared. I stepped forward side by side with him, the snow crunching under my boots. My voice rang out before I could think. "Then you'll have to go through me too, Father." The silence that followed was sharper than any blade. The forest fell quiet after my words. Too quiet. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, holding its breath with the men circling us. Snow swirled in the beam of a flashlight, tiny flakes caught in the tension stretching between us all. My father stepped forward. He didn't rush. He never did. Men like him didn't need to. Power walked at its own pace. He looked immaculate, as though he'd strolled from the comfort of his study instead of trudging through the snow. His coat fell in precise lines, his gloves spotless despite the hunt. A pistol glinted in his hand, steady as his gaze. "You disappoint me, Kaliana," he said softly. The words carried through the trees, sharper than any shout. "I thought the bond would make you cleverer, not reckless." My breath fogged in the cold, trembling but visible proof of defiance. The bond made me see the truth. His eyes hardened. "The truth is what I decide it is." The guards fanned out, forming a wide ring around us, guns lifted, trained. Joel shifted closer to me, his knife steady, his body a wall between me and the world. The bond surged, anger, resolve, his heart thundering in rhythm with mine. Father stopped, just inside the circle of light, a single step closer, his gaze sliding to Joel. Alvarez, always so dramatic. Tell me, what do you think you've achieved tonight? You've dragged my daughter into the woods, made her a fugitive in her own home, and for what? A kiss? A fantasy of freedom? Joel didn't flinch. For truth. Father's laugh was low, dark. Truth is a blade I've sharpened longer than you've been alive. And you think you can cut me with it? You already cut yourself, Joel said, with Anton's blood, with every lie you fed her. The name landed like a strike. Father's jaw clenched, but his voice stayed calm. Anton was weak. No, Joel snapped. Anton was loyal. To his men, to his people. You killed him because loyalty terrified you. My heart lurched. The bond burned. I'd asked Joel to prove himself, and he had again and again. My father's lies no longer fit their masks. They cracked in the cold. Father turned back to me, his eyes narrowing. And you believe him? Over me? Your own blood? I lifted my chin, every tremor in my body forging into steel. I believe the part of you that slipped when you spoke about Anton. Betrayal is death, you said. You didn't mean Anton betrayed you. You meant you betrayed him. The silence was shattering. Father's smile returned, thin as glass about to break. He raised the pistol, not at Joel, but at me. My blood went ice cold. Joel tensed, ready to throw himself between us, the bond screaming through my chest. You've been poisoned, Father said, his voice soft, dangerous, by this parasite. But blood is stronger, family is forever, and if I must burn one thread to protect the tapestry, then so be it. His finger brushed the trigger. Joel snarled, stepping forward. Don't you dare! The guard shifted, guns tightening on him. The forest held its breath again. I took a step forward, away from Joel, into the line of my father's gun. My legs shook, but my voice did not. You want to pull that trigger, I said. Do it. Kill me, because you can chain me, cage me, starve me, but the bond will not break. Even in death, you won't own me. His hand trembled, just slightly, but I saw it. A flicker of something raw in his eyes. Not love, never love, but fear. Fear that I wasn't bending anymore. The pistol lowered, an inch. Joel's hand closed over mine, steadying me, grounding me. You've already lost her, he said quietly. My father's breath frosted the air, sharp, fast. His eyes flicked between us, storm and fire and calculation all at once. For the first time in my life, I saw him not as invincible, not as eternal, but as a man standing in the snow, watching his control slip through his fingers. You think this is over, Father said at last, voice low, full of promise. But Alvarez doesn't have the power to keep you, and you don't have the strength to leave me. When the bond fades into ordinary flesh, when fire turns to ash, you'll remember who I am. You'll remember who you are. I shook my head, tears burning but unshed. I already remember. I'm not yours anymore. For a moment, I thought he might shoot. For a moment, I thought he might lunge, unleash the violence he'd hidden behind silk. But then, slowly, he lowered the pistol. He gestured to his men. Stand down. Shock rippled through the ring of guards, but obedience held. They lowered their weapons, uncertain. My father's smile was back. Too calm, too precise. Run then. See how far fate carries you. But remember, bonds rust, blood does not. He turned, his coat sweeping snow from the ground, and walked away. His men followed, shadows dissolving into the trees. Joel and I stood in the silence he left behind, our breaths ragged, the bond burning in the dark. And I knew this wasn't the end, it was the beginning of war. The forest kept our secret until dawn. By then my legs were fire and my lungs were knives, but Joel didn't slow until the road appeared, 2 pale tracks between pines, the horizon rinsed with grey. A van idled without lights. The side door slid and a hand reached out. "Now," Joel said. I jumped. Matteo hauled me in. Joel followed, and the door slammed. We fell into a dim box of wool blankets, metal and breath. The van shuddered forward, chewing frost. "No tails," Matteo said, eyes on the mirror. "Jun's people choked the feeds for 90 seconds. Looked like a snow glitch. You've got a head start." A head start, not freedom. The bond eased some wild part of me that had been clawing at the walls all night. I leaned back against the cold rib of the van and finally let my shaking show. Joel reached without thinking and laced our fingers. It wasn't a rescue, not exactly. It was a vow we kept making without words. "Where?" I asked. "North," he said. "Safe house first. Then we choose where the fight lives." I nodded, like I'd been planning escapes my whole life. In truth, I knew how to plan galas. I knew how to seat enemies so they smiled for photographs. I didn't know what came after running. "Drink." Matteo shoved a thermos into my hands. I sipped and almost cried at the heat. Joel watched me, as if memorizing the way I held a cup. The bond hummed, less like a fire now, more like a living wire tied between us. He turned to Matteo. "We'll need clean IDs, a car that can disappear, and a line to someone who won't sell us for a headline." "And Jun?" I asked, throat tight. "He'll hold as long as he can." Joel's mouth hardened. "But your father is already rewriting the story." He was right. By the time we reached a low-slung cabin, tucked into spruce and stone, the city had a new rumour. Trespass, theft, a daughter misled. I saw the headlines on Matteo's muted tablet while Joel checked the locks. Words like unstable and influence floated under a photo of me at a podium, smiling for other people's truths. I set the screen face down and stared at the knot of my hands. He's turning me into a ghost I can't argue with. "Then we give you a voice he can't drown," Joel said. He slid a file across the little kitchen table. Contracts, payrolls, the same proof he'd put in my hands in the library, now joined by more. Timelines, shell companies, a chain of receipts that looked like bones. "What's the plan?" I asked, hating the tremble in my voice. 7 days, he said. "Day 1, we breathe. Day 2, we put this in the hands of people who won't look away. Day 3, we make your father talk on record. Day 4, we move the money he can move, freeze the money he can't. Day 5, we show the city what he calls usefulness. Day 6, we force the oversight hearing he's dodged. Day 7. What happens on day 7? He didn't blink. Day 7. We don't hide anymore. I should have been terrified. Some part of me was, but another part, the one that had stared down a gun in the snow and said no, lifted her head. "I'm in," I said. "Good," Joel murmured, and for the first time, since the garden of glass, he let himself smile. Small, real. It put warmth back in my hands. We slept in shifts. When it was finally my turn to rest, I lay on the narrow bed with my coat still on and my boots by the door, listening to Joel talk quietly into a secure line. Names I didn't know. Old loyalties. New ones. A map of pressure points traced in a voice that only turned sharp when it said my name. The bond settled like a second blanket. Exhaustion dragged me under. I dreamed of a winter garden and a glass ceiling beginning to crack.
We moved at first light. The safe house gave us walls. It didn't give us time. I put us in a battered sedan that had never been photographed and took roads that GPS forgot. Kaliana watched the trees slide by like she was memorizing an alphabet she'd never been taught. "The journalist?" she asked. "Two," I said. "One who won prizes for fighting a governor and lost a job for it. One who reads footnotes like scripture. They don't like each other. That's good. They'll check each other's work. And the law? A deputy AG who owes me nothing and hates owing anyone. She'll be our clean hands if she believes the ledger." Kaliana nodded, jaw tight. "And if she doesn't, then we go loud." She looked at me. "Louder than headlines." "Louder," I said. "Your voice, not mine." We didn't go to any newsroom. We went to a church with a soup line and a basement full of card tables. The reporter with the prizes met us at a folding chair, eyes tired, mouth curious. The footnote reader was already there, tapping on an old laptop like it had sinned. "Off the record?" Prizes asked. "On the record," Kaliana said before I could speak. She sat straighter, shoulders back the way her father had trained her, weaponized poise now turned against him. "You can print my name, but you print the documents too." Footnotes whistled low when she saw Anton's signature next to ghost payrolls. "If this is real," she didn't finish. She didn't have to. "Corroborate," I said. "3 sources. I'll give you 5. We left them to it and drove to a second appointment in a municipal building that smelled like old paper and power. The deputy AG was younger than I expected and colder. She read fast, asked questions that hurt, made notes that felt like stitches. "You understand what you're alleging," she said at last, looking from me to Kaliana. "You understand what he'll do." "Yes," Kaliana said, steady. "He's already doing it." The DA pressed her lips together. "If I move, I have to land a blow. If I miss, he will break you." "Then don't miss," I said. She held my stare the way men do when they are deciding what kind of war they're willing to own. Then she closed the folder. "I'll call you if it's enough." When we hit the street, the cold bit hard. Kaliana blew out a breath and watched it vanish. "What if she doesn't call?" she asked. "Then we give the city a camera and say your father's name." Kaliana's hand found mine. "Then we do both anyway." We didn't make it back to the car before my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered and June's quiet voice filled the line. "He's hunting softer targets," June said without greeting. "Board members, vendors, anyone whose loyalty you might borrow. And he's turning the cameras on himself." "What does that mean?" Kaliana asked, leaning close. June exhaled. "He's crying on television." I swore. Kaliana didn't. She lifted her chin. "Then let's give them a better story." That night we sat in the safe house kitchen with a borrowed camera and a lamp with no shade. No filters, no script, just Kaliana, close to the lens, telling the city about a man who taught her loyalty and forgot to teach her mercy. She didn't accuse. She didn't plead. She told the truth like a clean cut and let the room bleed. When she finished, I didn't touch her. I wanted to. The bond made it a kind of ache I hadn't had a name for until her. But some things deserve a circle drawn around them. This was hers. Mateo uploaded. The story began to run without us. Phones lit, inboxes filled. A councilwoman I hadn't spoken to in 5 years called to say about time. The deputy AG texted, "Need originals, chain of custody, tomorrow." 3 words after that, "Don't disappear." We didn't sleep much. The bond hummed like a generator. The storm was finally choosing a direction. Morning brought the first counterpunch, an injunction that tried to make silence a law. It also brought our first ally with a badge. The deputy AG walked onto local TV with a warrant and the kind of eyes that suggested she'd set her own career on fire if the blaze was honest. By noon, Hayes's house was a press scrum. By dusk, his lawyers were a wall. By midnight, a new rumor, a son-in-law the papers had invented for me once, had given a quote he'd regret. Every lie my father had ever told reached for a coat and stumbled into the street. Through it all, Joel stayed near. Never in front. Never over me, just near, like a promise a body could lean on. When I finally swayed on my feet, he guided me to the bed, put water by my hand, and sat on the floor with his back against the frame like a sentry who didn't mind the ache. 7 days, he said, eyes on the door. Day 2, I breathed. He tipped his head back. Day 2. The bond eased. I slept without dreaming.
The first night we didn't run felt wrong. My body had learned to sleep with one ear on the floor and my boots pointing at the door. But the cabin by the water was more stubborn than the fear. The tide kept time. The wind smoothed sharp edges. The stove clicked and complained, then did what we asked of it. We didn't say this was home. We said for now. That was enough to make the walls warm. The case hadn't ended. My father hadn't vanished. Some mornings the news made me shake so hard I had to sit on the floor and press my palms to the boards. On those days, Joel didn't tell me to be strong. He made coffee and sat with me until the shaking passed, then handed me the next thing we could do. We lived in that rhythm until a night arrived that didn't ask anything of us. Rain walked on the roof. The sea breathed. The small lamp on the dresser threw a gentle circle of light. Joel took the book from my hands and set it aside. He didn't rush. He never rushed me. "Are you sure?" he asked, voice low. I was standing between his knees, his hands open on my hips like an offer. The bond was a warm, steady tide. For the first time since the garden, nothing else pressed at the edges. "Yes," I said, and felt the word move through both of us. He searched my face, the way he always did when the answer mattered. When he saw it, something in him unknotted. He rose, close without crowding, and kissed me like we had all the time the ocean could lend. The kiss wasn't a storm. We'd survived storms. It was a door opening. I stepped through. His hands curled at my waist and then flattened against my back, drawing me in. I felt the heat of him through soft cotton and the shiver that followed when my fingers slid under the hem of his shirt to find skin. He was solid and warm and shaking a little, the way I was. "Tell me," he murmured against my mouth. "What you want, what you don't." "I want you," I said, and meant the whole of him. The quiet and the iron, and the man who sat on floors when I couldn't stand. "Stay with me." "I'm not going anywhere." We undressed each other without theatre. Slow, mindful, a button, a zipper, the soft drag of fabric. We paused when nerves rose and breathed through them together. When I reached for the light, he caught my fingers and kissed each one before letting me choose. I left the lamp on low. I wanted to see him and be seen. When his mouth found my throat, my breath hitched. When his hands mapped my back, my body decided it knew this, had always known this. He asked and I answered, I asked and he answered. Step by step, we learned the shape of yes. On the bed, nothing felt like escape. Nothing felt like proof. It felt like building. He kept his eyes on mine whenever I wanted them, looked away when I needed the courage of my own breath, returned when the need changed. The bond threaded heat through every touch but didn't rush us. We set the pace, we chose the depth, we moved together until the outside world fell quiet. When it finally broke over us, pleasure and relief and everything we'd been carrying, it wasn't a blaze that burned down the house. It was a tide that took what it needed and brought something back. After, he held me the way you hold something you plan to carry a long time. Rain softened to a hush. My heartbeat slowed under his palm. "You're shaking," he whispered. "I'm happy," I said, surprised to hear it and more surprised to feel it. "And I'm not afraid." He pressed his mouth to my shoulder. If fear comes back, we'll meet it at the door. We? We, he echoed. We drifted in and out of sleep. When I woke in the blue-grey hour before dawn, Joel was on his back, one arm under my head, the other still curved around my waist like habit. The lamp was off, the rain had gone, the sea kept its promise. I lay there and counted the quiets I could name. After, before, beside. The kind of quiet you only earn. Day 7 would come, and with it hearings, headlines, more hard rooms. My father would not forgive. The city wouldn't choose quickly. But the bond had become something I trusted more than fate. A choice we kept making, one small brave step at a time, until the steps looked like a life. Good morning, Joel said without opening his eyes. Hi, I whispered. Still here. Still here, I said and kissed him, and meant always.
How did it start? I wish I knew. A whisper in the night, a touch too soon. But when your eyes find mine, I freeze, like I'm caught inside a dream. I can't